Dr. Guardian Angel, inspired by a true story about living and leaving with dignity.
Hi, my name is Zach, and I'm 20 years old. And if you're reading this, it means I most likely lost my battle to cancer. Lost. I don't know why people say lost. I wouldn't use that word to describe my journey with cancer. The last few months were magical. I gained so much more than I lost. I learned to live. Many people call my story a tragedy, but I don't think so. When I was 3 years old, a fortune teller told my parents that I was a jinx. And that was the last time I was allowed to call them mom and dad. Despite all the drama, I've lived a fruitful life. My Uncle James put a roof over my head, fed me, and taught me how to approach goals. He didn't always impart the right strategy, but I had a few sweet romances and I made a lot of friends along the way who became like family. It was all good until it got harder to breathe. Literally. I will never forget the day I found out about my cancer. Just like every other 20-something Singaporean boy, it was my time to serve my country. I was really excited. I couldn't wait to make more memories and friends. I was always the first to wake up and get dressed for every activity. But one morning, I woke up with a sharp pain in my chest. It wasn't very painful, but it was an annoying, lingering sensation, although I didn't think anything of it. The next thing I knew, there were tubes sticking out of my nose. It was lung cancer, stage 4. I did not see that coming. Uncle James converted my room into the most comfortable place in the world. He wanted to make sure that I had everything I needed. So, he got me a PlayStation 4 with the latest games and introduced me to something called palliative care. Uncle James said that palliative care was supposed to help me live. But at that time, I almost thought that it was to help me die. That's when I met Dr. Jane. She's about my age, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. She was the sweetest person in the world. She was my palliative care doctor, and she made sure that I stayed positive. She made it seem easy, because she always wore a smile on her face. I think she had a soft spot for me. I don't blame her, I am quite lovable. I told her about my life and I could see that she tried her best to hold back her tears when she listened to my stories. She never said it, but I knew that she really cared for me. She was my strength, and no matter how tough the day was, Dr. Jane and her team always reminded me that tomorrow was a new day. They weren't just there to treat me, they were there to support me. There was so much uncertainty in the air, but Dr. Jane and her team kept me strong. I was skeptical at first. I didn't realize how much palliative care would help me physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. And then, my cancer started to show. I lost a lot of weight and food stopped tasting good. A cancer specialist told me about a type of drug that might do the trick, but said that it might come with drastic side effects. I told Dr. Jane about it and she asked me if I wanted to try it. And without hesitation, I said yes. The next few weeks weren't easy, but Dr. Jane helped me get through it. The palliative care team helped my pain go away. I don't think I would have been able to keep my head up if it wasn't for their constant love and encouragement. It's been 2 weeks since I started a new drug, but I've become more and more breathless. Dr. Jane sat beside me with the cancer specialist and told me that they had both good news and bad news. Good news, the tumors have disappeared. Bad news, I was the 1% that was affected by the side effects of the drug. My lungs were slowly shutting down. The first thing that came to my mind was, oh dear, how am I going to maintain my high score on Final Fantasy? I told Dr. Jane about my biggest regrets. I told her that I regret not being able to take my crush on a date, travel the world, and be a good son and take care of my parents. Dr. Jane just smiled and said that she'll be back tomorrow. She came back to my house very early the next day. She brought a pen, paper, and an envelope. She told me that she'll help me send a letter to my parents. At first, I thought that it was a bad idea, but then I had nothing to lose. Poor Dr. Jane. She had to help me write pages and pages and pages. I had so much to say, but struggled to find the words. Once I was done, she put it in an envelope and said that she'll deliver it to them for me. A few days later, Uncle James said that I had visitors. 2 people who looked a lot like me walked in my room. I knew in my heart who they were. They sat down next to me and I said, "I'm sorry that I couldn't be a good son, Mr. and Mrs. Lee." They broke down in tears and said, "I'm sorry, son. Your ma and pa are so sorry." I couldn't believe what happened. I finally saw my parents after 20 years, and I got to call them ma and pa again. I don't know how I will find the words to thank Dr. Jane for what she has done for me.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jane. Zach asked me to help him finish this book. Unfortunately, he passed away on 5th June at 3 a.m., 6 months after his diagnosis. I will never forget Zach. Even until the end, he made sure that he left us all in smiles. He put everyone else before him, and his positivity was so contagious. He wanted me to tell Uncle James, his family, friends, and the hospice volunteers too. Try to stay happy. There will be cloudy days, but the sun will still come out, just like the days I had here with all of you. Thank you for adding life into my last few breaths. I have gained more than I have lost. Why palliative care? Just like Dr. Jane and her team, palliative care is provided by a multidisciplinary team consisting of doctors, nurses, social workers, counselors, and trained volunteers. They bring comfort and support to patients and their family members by caring for them physically, emotionally, psychologically, socially, and spiritually. Patients choose palliative care to focus on their quality of life in the time that they still have. It is not to give up living. Palliative care services are available as home care, day care, inpatient care, and consultative services. If we are to spend our final days with dignity and the least possible pain, we must plan ahead and make our decisions known when we are able to, with sound body, and mind.